Spencer Falls, and I work for the Athens Institute for Education and Research, which is a world association for academics and researchers. We have started a new initiative of interviewing the participants that attend our many conferences in Athens to present their work. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. David Wigg, Professor of History at Gordon College, USA. Hello, Dr. Wigg. Welcome to Athens.
Thank you.
So, I would like to start with your presentation at the conference. You're going to present the paper, Stoics and Epicureans for the Modern Market, How Athenian Educators Retooled the Old City's Modern Schools for Republican Rome. Tell us a few words about it.
Well, the title is really for an ancient modern market. The idea is that colleges and universities having to reinvent the liberal arts in eras when people are financially anxious or they want to get a quick payback in terms of career or political or business skills. The pressures on schools to change what they teach, especially liberal arts schools that in the Athenian tradition are very much about who you are and the skills of wisdom in life and integrating your skills into the world challenges around you. Those don't sound like they're very translatable into immediate political or business skills. And the challenge that universities have today has been faced before. Since I'm an ancient urban historian and I specialize in Rome and Athens, I believe that I've found an era where many of these things happened long ago in very modern ways. So I've been doing a small series at Abner, looking at the different classic schools of Athens and how, in a very modern era of challenge, they try to do the things, and maybe there are some lessons. Certainly there's some insights.
Yes, very interesting. So tell us a few words about yourself, your studies, your career, and whatever else you want to tell.
Well, as I said, I'm an urban historian more than anything else. I'm interested in the urban cultures of cities in the ancient world. And also in moments of stress or change, rapidly moving change, where a culture or people have to decide what's really important to them, or they find out how adaptable they are, how they can respond to everything else changing around them. So maybe that makes Athens a really natural interest for me. I've studied Greek, Roman, other kinds of cultures, but I find myself coming back again and again to the moments of rapid change in ancient Athens. And so many people have done the classical era. I've looked for some of the other moments in the ancient world where Athens has defined itself. Started studying years ago in the Midwest and the West Coast of America. Taught in Seattle and now in Boston at Gordon College as the ancient historian there.
Nice. So you said your major area of research is ancient Roman Athens, right?
But the largest. I do some work in ancient religion, especially again when people are having to make changes and choices. I do some work in military history. You have to if you're interested in change and stress. But the place where I feel most at home, maybe because of Boston, there's an American. You have an American city that once was very politically powerful, but although Bostonians don't always know, it has lost a great deal of that and has survived because it's convinced everyone else in the world that their children need to go to school there, people need to be tourists, people need to bank there. This happened in Athens in the modern, last 2 centuries. But it also happened to Athens at the end of the ancient world. Athens went from being politically very important to being important because important things that happened there and your children needed to study. You needed to be a tourist, you needed to be a retiree, you needed to be an alumnus.
Yes.
It became a town a little bit like Boston that's lived with education, the banking that comes with students and tourists. And that's not an easy thing for a very powerful independent town to swallow.
Yes.
You have to adjust to that.
Yes. So how do you view the fact that such a great civilization is into Athens, that you say, has become to the Athens, the Greece of today, which faces so many economical or political struggles? How do you think such a great civilization has
certainly found itself in more than its share of challenges again today? Without any specific, comment on political negotiations today, I do think, well, first of all, it's, Athens belongs to the Athenians, and any 6 opinions that you got on the sidewalk here would be worth more than mine.
Yeah.
But if if you'd allow a historian an opinion, I think part of what has been the heritage of trouble and challenge in Athens is actually the kinds of moments of glory Athens has had in the past. Lots of cultures have moments of glory. Greece in general and Athens in particular have had their moments of glory because they were eccentric, unusual, innovative, out of the box, to use an American phrase. People who always think sideways around a problem instead of going directly by the set of instructions that some administrator gives you. If you're innovative and a little eccentric, you tend to live through a lot of stressful situations. I suspect that in the history of Greece and in the history of Athens, if you found moments of calm and ease, those might be the illusions. It is the genius of being Athenian, and to some degree the genius of being Greek, that creates these constant bits of turmoil. You're cursed in that sort of Chinese way to live through interesting times because you don't do things by the book. Not typically. But there are worse things. Think of all of this has been invented and expressed, all of the drama and poetry of everyday life that's turned into drama and poetry on the stage or in politics or things because you don't do things in the easiest, in the easiest way. I was going to say, in the way a set of instructions from the European Union suggests that you should, but there's always been something big like that. And it is the nature of Greeks never to have followed that set of easy instructions.
True. You feel pretty optimistically, I think.
Well,
most people don't do it like this.
I realize that it's very hard when you live inside of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you are doing those things, you're improvising because you feel terribly stressed and because you can't see around the next corner.
Yes.
But you do have a choice of doing the easy thing, of following the straight instruction, or of trying something creative. And every time you try something creative, it startles whatever the authority figure or the person applying the pressure above you.
Yes, you're right.
And that creates, it does create a more stressful life, but it also creates the kinds of innovations that Greeks have been so proud of for so many years. You do not get those by living an easy life.
It's true. Very
good for historians, hard to live through.
Exactly.
Wonderful for storytellers and investigators.
True. So you have been a member of ADNER for 10 years, and you're also the director of the Arts and Humanities Research Division of ADNER. So from your experience, tell us your opinion about ADNER and what made you put so much time and effort in the association.
Really discovered ADNER about 15 years ago. It took a while to become a member. I think what really charmed me initially about ADNER is the way, under stress, we're just talking about stress and innovation, the staff here, not just Dr. Papanikas, but all of the people who put things together, managed to constantly struggle with economies of scale to produce a way for scholars and investigators to talk to each other conversationally in intimate settings. It'd be nice to have enormous conferences. That's what the academic world is typically about, these gigantic halls full of people posturing for each other. ADNER creates human-scale conversations, calls them conferences, where people from all over the world in small settings can actually talk about their ideas and meet somebody else and compare and cross-fertilize insights. I found that not just charming, but very appropriate to Athens too, partly for reasons I just mentioned, but also very genuine. There's a level of conversation that happens at an ADNER conference about something historical, about something artistic, about, arts and humanities. It is a much more human experience.
Do you think this is more effective than large conferences?
If you were thinking in straight money for career goals purposes?
No, in the communication.
Probably not. But if you're actually trying to develop wiser people, investigators and scholars and creative artists for that matter, because you have artists that present at the Arts and Humanities conferences and not just scholars. If you're trying to genuinely create a world of small rooms where people can get to know each other, where real conversation is possible, yes, I think it's terribly effective. It seems inefficient to, I think, a lot of business perspectives. And Dr. Papanikos is a businessman. I've been very impressed over the years with how hard this staff has fought to hold on to some of that small is beautiful idea that most of the academic world says they believe in, but you go to the conferences and they don't.
Thank you. So, tell us about the status of the educational system in the U.S. and what do you think are its advantages and disadvantages?
Well, the first thought with status is the challenges everything faces. Again, 2 or 3 economic recessions in a row, as here in Greece. And along with that, the constant belief on the part of, sometimes of parents or of people who are administrators in universities, that they constantly believing that the arts and humanities or the liberal arts are outmoded, and that, I'm thinking about the series of papers I'm doing, that the only real solution is to take education and aim it straight at a license or a set of tools that you use. The state of education in the United States is hopeful because there are still plenty of schools fighting that and trying to teach a level of wisdom to students that they can use, and recognizing that you go to school to try and learn a very specific set of career skills, and then the world that you live in changes, and in 5 years those skills don't work. And you have to reinvent yourself, and you're barely beginning to pay your student loans back. So I hope, you accused me of being optimistic, what I hope is that enough of us in the world of education remember the Greek lesson, to try and teach students to get to know themselves and their skills, to learn some wisdom about things, to learn enough about human beings that when the world changes every 5 years so enormously that your skills aren't necessarily perfect anymore. You can learn the people around you and adapt. Learning to be adaptable. And being adaptable means a variety of the kinds of skills about human beings, about character, about buying and selling and relationship with customers, but with human beings, it was really more part of the ancient Greek way of teaching. So I took a question about the status of schools in America. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. The people are given administrative positions in order to produce good bottom line money results. But one of the most important things about an educational system is to understand that colleges are not really corporations or profit-making companies in the administrative entities, less because they can't. But what they really are in business model is like an art atelier, like a craft workshop. Your professors are craftspersons. The difference is that you're not making a pot. The pot is a person making themselves, and you're the craftsperson helping them. But if you think in terms of the business model of a craft shop in an art neighborhood, you still have to make a living. But it's a much better way to think of what's happening at school. And I'm hoping, both in Greece and in the United States, that one learns that lesson from the times of economic trouble.
Do you think that the system in the U.S. teaches this lesson?
I think a lot of the smaller schools do. And I think that you can be very lucky and find people in the larger schools forming little groups that do. I do think that it helps if people read outside their disciplines and learn a little bit about the heritage of the ancient world, or about worlds wider than their own specialty. I do think that the largest schools in the United States have the same tendency that the state university system in Greece has, to think of itself as a big engine that just has to make money out the other end. And as a result, they want to streamline things a bit. They want to concentrate just on what look like the 3 or 4 most remunerative, the 3 or 4 best money-making majors. Greece could probably use a few more private universities or colleges competing with its state schools. But the fact is, in America, the state schools pretend that the private ones don't exist, and they really think in the same way. So there's a challenge there. If you think of yourself as a monopoly, you tend to not learn the lessons of the troubled times that you live in. You feel insulated a bit. So I think there are some parallels.
Yes. Thank you. You have very interesting opinions about it. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, whether that's a compliment or
Oh, it's a
Thank
compliment.
you.
It's a
Thank you
compliment.
very
Very
much.
optimistic. It's a compliment.
You are a good example of what I appreciate about Abner, the intelligence of approach, but also the fact that that conversationally, Abner pays attention to the people that come. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about it.
Thank you very much for
You're welcome.